The bronze testing bell was supposed to ring once. Mine rang 5 times. Not 5 strikes, 5 notes. The first was low enough to vibrate through the floorboards. The second sounded like a temple bell heard across a valley. The third was sharp enough to make 3 examiners flinch. The fourth seemed to come from somewhere behind me. The fifth note did not come from the bell at all. It came from inside my chest. For several seconds, nobody in the Royal Assessment Hall moved. Then Examiner Cho 1 slowly lowered the wooden striker. That, he said, was not a valid result. I stared at the bronze bell under my palm. I was 15 years old. My name was Min Jun. I was the younger son of a disgraced provincial clerk in Gaean County. And I had already died 4 times. An old dark jade book unfolded inside my thoughts. Only I could see it. Current life 5. Lives remaining 46. Legacy marks 4. Patient mind. Perfect breath. Living pulse. True resonance. Then a line appeared that had never existed before. Harmonic compatibility detected. I forgot about the room. I forgot Cho 1. I forgot that half the county's influential families were watching from the raised gallery. For 4 entire lives, the 50-life record had allowed me to carry one thing forward whenever I died. One achievement. One quality truly earned. Never strength for free, never someone else's knowledge, never a convenient miracle. One thing. Now, for the first time, the record was telling me those 4 things could interact. Cho 1 struck the bell again. It gave one dull note. There, he said. The crowd relaxed. People prefer a broken instrument to a broken worldview. Cho 1 was 54, broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, and dressed in the dark blue robe of a royal classification officer. He had spent 28 years deciding what children were useful for. Military school, temple service, royal clerical work, cultivation halls, craft guilds, or ordinary labor. His word could decide the next decade of a 15-year-old's life. He looked at the clerk beside him. Record Min Jun as spiritually defective, no measurable root response. My mother made a sound from somewhere behind me. Small, barely audible. It hurt more than the announcement. Cho 1 continued reading my file. Family tax arrears, father deceased, elder brother absent from registered service. Missing, I thought. Not absent. My brother Min Ho had joined a royal mountain expedition 2 years earlier and never returned. Cho 1 dipped his brush. Under county labor statute, 3 years of public road service. I should probably have been angry. Instead, I looked at the testing bell again. 5 notes. For the first time in 4 lives, something new had happened to the record before I died. Cho 1 mistook my silence for humiliation. You may appeal after 12 months. Can I ask one question? His expression tightened slightly. Briefly. Has that bell ever produced more than 1 note for anyone else? The hall became quiet again. Cho 1's eyes flicked toward the instrument. No. That was a lie. I didn't know how I knew yet. But true resonance was still humming through my fingers, and beneath the bell's ordinary note, I could feel hundreds of faint impressions layered inside the bronze. Some high, some low, some barely there. The bell remembered vibration. Not events, not voices, not people's crimes, just resonance. And this bell had produced secondary harmonics before. Many times. Cho 1 tapped the file with his brush. You have been given your classification. I bowed. Then I suppose I'd better become very good at roads. A girl near the doorway laughed. Cho-1 did not. That was how Life 5 began. Not with a sword. Not with a legendary inheritance. Not with the discovery that I was secretly the lost prince of anything. I was assigned a shovel. And considering what happened afterward, Cho-1 really should have given me something less useful. To explain why, I need to explain the 4 lives that came before. My first life began in a village called Gaon. Yes, the same Gaon. That bothered me too. I was born almost 3 centuries earlier, when the county was barely more than rice fields, timber houses, and a military road cutting through the mountains. At 13, I stood in another assessment hall while traveling cultivators tested village children. My 2 closest friends had usable channels. I did not. I still remember watching them leave in white training robes, while I stood in the road pretending I was happy for them. I was not. I was furious. Not at them. At the world. For 20 years, I measured my life against people who could do things I never would. Then slowly I stopped. I became a messenger first because I knew the roads. Then a survey clerk because I knew distances. Then a mapmaker because apparently complaining about badly drawn maps often enough qualifies as professional ambition. I walked almost every major route in the eastern provinces. I learned where springs lasted through drought, where mountain fog gathered, which roads flooded first, which bridges failed under military wagons, which temples sat on strange patches of warm stone. I learned that cultivators were powerful, but cultivators still needed food. Armies needed roads. Cities needed water. And a man who knew where everything was could occasionally make someone who could punch through a wall wait politely for directions. I died at 67. No murder. No betrayal. No heavenly lightning. My heart stopped while I was trying to correct an apprentice's map. I remember being annoyed because he had drawn a river on the wrong side of a ridge. Then the Darkshade book appeared. Life 1 complete. 49 lives remain. Select 1 legacy. The choices were all things I had genuinely earned. Cartographic memory. Long-distance endurance. Weather sense. Patient mind. I chose patient mind. At the time, I thought I had probably wasted immortality's first gift on the supernatural ability to tolerate boredom. I was wrong. Patient mind became the foundation beneath everything. Then I opened my eyes again and discovered that death had not been an ending. It had been a page turn. My second childhood was mostly spent trying to convince adults that a 12-year-old should be allowed to sit perfectly still for 6 hours. They found this suspicious. I found their concern irritating. I had been reborn near a mountain temple called Hara Temple, where abandoned children were raised alongside novice attendants. My memories returned at 12. All 67 years. One moment I was carrying firewood. The next I remember dying elderly, opinionated, and extremely dissatisfied with an apprentice map. I dropped the firewood on my foot. Reincarnation did not make me graceful. The temple tested my spiritual channels. Weak, but usable. I nearly cried. The old monk performing the test thought I was devastated. I was actually looking at the smallest possible door into cultivation and thinking it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. The basic temple method was simple. Breathe in for 4 heartbeats. Hold for 2. Guide spiritual warmth from the lower abdomen through the first channel. Release. Repeat. The talented novices hated it after a month. I repeated it for years. Patient mind was absurd. Not glamorous. Not powerful by itself. but I could perform the same breathing cycle 10,000 times while maintaining almost exactly the same attention I had on the first repetition. Eventually, I noticed something. The gifted students advanced faster because they pulled in more spiritual energy. They also made tiny mistakes. A shoulder lifting, a breath shortening, a circulation loop cutting across a channel instead of following its center. Nothing serious. Nothing that prevented advancement. But imperfections accumulated. Mine didn't. I was slow enough to become precise. At 18, my cultivation was still below 3 students younger than me. At 25, 2 of them had stalled because their foundations were uneven. At 30, I passed them. That was my first lesson in progression. Speed and acceleration were not the same thing. I never became legendary. I never shattered mountains. The strongest thing I ever broke was a badly made stone bench, and that was because I sat down too enthusiastically after training. But my foundation became exceptionally clean. I served Hara Temple for 91 years. Cultivation extended my life, though not dramatically. Near the end, I could still sit in winter air and circulate energy without losing rhythm. When I died, the record returned. Life 2 complete. 48 lives remain. I chose perfect breath. When life 3 began, I discovered the difference immediately. I was born as Seo Min, son of a poor herbal healer in Miro Valley. My memories returned when I was 13. I was grinding dried bark with a stone pestle. The moment the memories arrived, my breathing automatically changed. My body inhaled with the exact rhythm I had spent nearly a century perfecting. I didn't think about it. It simply knew. That was when I understood what a legacy mark really was. Memory told me what I had learned. A legacy mark changed what my soul considered natural. My father in that life, Seo Dal, was a practical healer who distrusted anything described as ancient, secret, or guaranteed. He said those 3 words were responsible for half his patients. The other half were responsible for themselves. He treated farmers, merchants, soldiers, low-level cultivators, injured hunters, children with fever, women exhausted after childbirth, and elderly people whose pain nobody important cared about. I learned medicine because I loved him. I became obsessed with it because cultivation made no sense. Cultivators spoke about meridians as though they were carved tunnels inside the body. Open, closed, wide, narrow, damaged, gifted, useless. But bodies were not stone. Bodies adapted. A farmer's hands thickened. A runner's breathing changed. Broken bones repaired themselves. Muscles strengthened when stressed. Why would spiritual channels be the only part of the human body incapable of adaptation? My father told me because generations of smarter people had already studied it. I asked whether generations of smarter people had ever been wrong. He told me to clean the herb shelves. That became a recurring feature of our scientific discussions. At 15, I discovered perfect breath made pulse diagnosis unusually easy. At 17, I could feel the slight interruption in a patient's heartbeat before my father noticed it. At 19, I began studying cultivators immediately before and after circulation practice. At 23, I convinced a local guard captain to let me examine his channels after training. He agreed because I had treated his daughter. Also because I offered free medicine. Research funding has always existed. Sometimes it looks like soup. The first real breakthrough happened accidentally. A young cultivator named Ha Rin came to our clinic with a damaged shoulder. She was 20, blunt, cheerful only when nobody wanted her to be, and convinced that any medical instruction containing the phrase "avoid training" was a personal insult. While adjusting pressure around the injury, I felt something through my fingers. Not the muscle, not the blood vessel, the spiritual channel beneath it. When Ha-Rin inhaled, pressure increased. When she exhaled, it relaxed. When I pressed one point near her collarbone during circulation, the channel changed shape. Only slightly. But it changed. I froze. Ha-Rin looked at me. "Is that your medical face?" "What?" "The face where you discover something interesting and forget you're touching a person." I removed my hand immediately. "Sorry." That was not permission to look disappointed. Ha-Rin became the first person I trusted with the experiment. Not because she was reckless. Because she wasn't. That surprised me. She trained hard, but she refused every test I could not explain. "If you don't know what it does," she said, "you don't get to discover what it does inside me." Reasonable. Annoyingly reasonable. So I experimented on myself. Breathing. Heat. Herbs. Pressure. Stretching. Controlled circulation. Thousands upon thousands of repetitions. Patient mind allowed consistency. Perfect breath eliminated one variable at a time. And over 11 years, my mediocre channels changed. Not dramatically at first. Then unmistakably. They grew more tolerant of pressure. More flexible. More efficient. My natural talent had not changed. My functional capacity had. The impossible distinction mattered. By 35, I could circulate as much spiritual energy as cultivators born with far better channels. By 42, I had developed the first version of meridian tempering. That should have been the triumph of life 3. Instead, it nearly killed me. I knew something was wrong when my fingertips turned cold. Not painfully cold. Empty cold. The kind that means blood or spiritual energy is not reaching somewhere it should. I stopped the circulation cycle immediately. My pulse was steady. Breathing normal. No obvious channel rupture. Then living pulse did not exist yet, so I could only investigate with the tools I had. For 6 days, everything seemed fine. On the 7th, I collapsed while carrying water. Ha-Rin found me. She was 51 by then, though cultivation had kept her looking younger. She sat beside my bed while my father, now old, thin, and still convinced most secret techniques were stupid, examined me. Neither of them looked pleased. Ha-Rin finally said, "Congratulations." I blinked. 4. You proved you can improve meridians. That sounds good. You also proved you can damage them slowly enough that the person experimenting doesn't notice. That sounds less good. My father smacked my ankle with a folded cloth. I deserved worse. The problem was subtle. Meridian tempering strengthened the channels structurally. But every circulation cycle produced vibration. Tiny. Normally harmless. As my channels widened, I increased energy volume. The vibration increased too. Over thousands of cycles, microscopic damage accumulated around places where the rhythm became unstable. I had solved pressure. I had not solved resonance. I stopped all advanced training. That decision cost me. A merchant house had already offered enough silver to buy our clinic 10 times over for exclusive access to the technique. A local cultivation school offered me rank. Another offered land. Ha-Rin asked whether I regretted stopping. I did. I hated admitting it. I had spent almost 3 lifetimes wanting the thing naturally gifted people received at birth. I had finally found a way to manufacture it. And the method was dangerous. So I burned the copies. Not the research. The instructions. I kept my notes. I kept studying. But I refused to teach an incomplete method simply because people were willing to pay. That became one of the most important choices I ever made. For the rest of Life 3, I became a healer first and cultivator second. Ha-Rin opened a larger clinic with me. She handled patients because she liked humans. I handled records because I liked them in organized columns. She told everyone this division prevented tragedy. Years passed. My father died. Then many of our early patients. Then their children brought us grandchildren. Living that long while remembering another life changed something in me. At first, each death hurt. Later, I started telling myself there would always be another life. Another town. Another family. Another beginning. It was comforting. Too comforting. I didn't notice what that belief was doing to me yet. The breakthrough that defined Life 3 happened when I was 78. A child came in with fever after an unstable cultivation awakening. Her pulse seemed normal. Her breathing seemed normal. But when I touched 2 fingers to her wrist and focused with everything I had learned, I felt something beneath both. A second rhythm. The blood pulse. And the spiritual pulse. For the first time, I understood that meridians did not merely carry power. They behaved like living tissue. Pressure. Response. Tension. Recovery. Flow. The body was not a container for cultivation. The body participated in it. From then on, my diagnostics became almost frighteningly accurate. I could feel a blockage before visible symptoms appeared. I could detect where circulation was becoming unstable. I could identify when a supposedly weak cultivator actually had one narrow junction, restricting otherwise excellent channels. I never fully repaired meridian tempering. But I finally understood what I lacked. I needed a way to perceive the vibration itself. Ha-Rin died before me. She was 86. Near the end, she made me promise one thing. Next life, she whispered, because she knew by then what I was. Try having friends before you're 80. I had you. You accidentally acquired me during a shoulder examination. That still counts. She smiled. Then she said something I remembered much later. People are not practice lives, Min. She was the only person in that life who still called me that. My original name. She died 2 days later. I lived another 11 years. When the record opened, I barely looked at the other choices. Life 3 complete. 47 lives remain. I chose living pulse. Life 4 began in fire. Not metaphorically. My father in that life was a bronze caster, and the first thing I remembered after my previous memories returned was that I was standing too close to a furnace. I jumped backward. My father shouted, "Di-ho, if you fall into my bell mold, I am not recasting the whole thing around you." That was how I became Di-ho, son of a bell maker in Sora City. I was 14. My cultivation aptitude was terrible. The local hall tested me twice because the first examiner thought the result was insulting. Even with perfect breath, my channels could barely sustain enough energy to warm my palms. Past me would have been devastated. Fourth life me had finally developed perspective. I spent exactly 1 afternoon feeling sorry for myself. Then I went back to the foundry. Our family made temple bells, military signal bells, bronze mirrors, ritual bowls, ceremonial instruments, occasionally cooking pots, though my father considered cookware beneath his artistic dignity while accepting payment for it enthusiastically. Then Living Pulse changed everything. I placed my hand against a newly cast bell while my father tested it. The bronze rang, and I felt the vibration in my fingertips, almost the same way I had once felt meridians beneath skin. I asked him to strike it again. Then again. Then 12 more times. He eventually threatened to strike me instead. I started experimenting. Different alloys, different thicknesses, different shapes, different temperatures. Bronze had a pulse, not a living pulse, but a resonant one, and perfect breath allowed me to match it. When I inhaled at one rhythm, vibration faded against my awareness. At another, it became stronger. By 16, I could identify tiny casting defects from sound. By 19, I could tell which part of a bell's rim was uneven without touching it. By 25, craftsmen twice my age were asking me to inspect important commissions. I had become an exceptional bell maker. Then one evening, I made the connection that changed 4 lives. Meridians vibrated. Bronze vibrated. Breath had rhythm. Spiritual energy had rhythm. The flaw in meridian tempering was not only medical, it was acoustic. I spent the next 30 years learning how to tune myself. I called the new method resonant tempering. It began with something embarrassingly simple. A small bronze bowl. I filled it with water, struck the rim, and circulated spiritual energy while matching my breathing to the vibration. At the correct rhythm, Living Pulse detected less turbulence inside my channels. At the wrong rhythm, pressure rose sharply. That was it. That tiny difference was the answer Life 3 had died without finding. I stopped widening my channels directly. Instead, I taught them stability. Low energy first. Exact rhythm. Thousands of repetitions. Then slightly greater volume. Then a new frequency. Patient mind handled repetition. Perfect breath maintained timing. Living Pulse detected strain. And the craft of Life 4 supplied the missing resonance. My terrible channels improved. Not quickly. Then quicker. At 32, I reached the level the assessment hall had said I would never reach. At 37, I doubled it. At 41, a classification master tested me and accused me of replacing my spiritual channels with an artifact. I took that as a compliment. Then I found the old bell. It had been buried beneath a ruined mountain shrine outside Sora City. Most of the bronze was green with age. The inscription was worn away. The shape was unusual, taller than modern bells, with a rim divided into narrow concentric bands. I touched it. True resonance did not exist yet. Even so, Living Pulse reacted. Not to life, to structure. I felt layers. 9 obvious harmonics. Then others beneath them. I spent 6 years restoring that bell. Not continuously. I still had a family workshop, customers, apprentices, taxes, and a father who believed unpaid commissions were a moral failing. But whenever I could, I returned to the ruin. Modern spiritual theory recognized 9 stable harmonic layers in enchanted metal. The buried bell had 49. At first I assumed I was wrong. Then I assumed the ancients were insane. Eventually, I accepted the more uncomfortable answer. They knew something we didn't. At 58, I activated the 10th ring. Nothing happened. At 64, the 11th. At 70, I reached the first deeply nested harmonic. The bell rang once. For 3 seconds, I heard thousands of answers. They came from impossible distances. Not nearby temples. Not Sora City. Not anywhere inside the world I understood. It was like standing beside one bell in a valley, and suddenly realizing every star in the sky had a bell of its own. Then the sound vanished. I sat beside the ruined shrine until sunrise. My apprentice found me there. "You look terrible," he said. I heard the sky. He stared. "You look worse now." Nobody believed me. Fair enough. I barely believed me. But after that moment, ordinary cultivation theory felt unfinished. Why 49 harmonics? Why build an object capable of reaching something beyond the known world? Why did ancient mountain shrines appear on maps from my first life, in places that made no religious or military sense? I remembered warm stone beneath temples, old roads connecting apparently unimportant peaks, ruins that surveyors avoided because compasses behaved strangely. My lives were starting to overlap, not just as memories, as questions. I spent the last decades of life improving resonant tempering. My natural aptitude remained terrible. My actual ability did not. By 90, I had achieved a level respectable cultivators considered impossible for someone born like me. But I never reached the limits suggested by the ancient bell. My body simply could not support higher harmonics. When I died at 93, the record opened. Life 4 complete. 46 lives remain. The choices included master caster, metal memory, resonant tempering, harmonic hearing. I selected true resonance. And when I returned to life 5, the universe finally began combining what I had spent 4 lifetimes collecting. The morning after Cho 1 sentenced me to road labor, I reported to the county works yard. The foreman gave me a shovel, a pick, a hammer, and a look normally reserved for spoiled officials' sons. "You know which end of that goes down?" he asked. I looked at the shovel. "I've had a complicated education." That answer did not improve his confidence. Road work began before sunrise. We repaired retaining walls along the mountain route north of Gaon. The labor was brutal. Stone lifting, hammering, clearing drainage channels, dragging timber. My 15-year-old body hated me. My soul, however, was fascinated. Every hammer strike produced vibration. Every footstep produced feedback through the ground. Every breath changed muscular tension. I started synchronizing them. Strike, exhale, lift, inhale, step, circulate. Patient mind maintained the pattern. Perfect breath controlled oxygen and energy. Living pulse showed me which muscles strained before damage. True resonance told me how impact traveled through bone. By the end of the first week, I had developed a training cycle. By the end of the first month, my body had changed enough that the foreman stopped assigning someone to help me carry stones. By the third month, I was carrying stones for other people. That was when Jayan appeared. She was 16, wore her dark hair tied with a plain cord, and carried a tiny cracked hand bell hanging from her belt. She watched me strike a retaining stone 12 times. "Your 7th strike is wrong." I stopped. "What?" "The 7th one." "Wrong how?" "Too high." I stared at the hammer, then at her. "You can hear that." "Everyone can hear it." The 4 road workers nearby shook their heads. Jayan ignored them. She took the hammer from me, struck once, then again slightly lower. The second impact settled through the stone cleanly. I felt it through true resonance. She was right. That was irritating. Useful, but irritating. "Who are you?" "Jayan." That explains almost nothing. "My father keeps the dawn bell." That explained considerably more. She pointed at my stance. You're using the road stones as cultivation training. I considered lying, then remembered Ha Rin. Try having friends before 80. I am. Jian nodded. Good, your seventh strike is still wrong. And that was how I acquired my first friend in life 5. At 15. A personal record. Ha Rin would have been unbearable about it. Jian's tiny cracked bell sounded terrible. She called it Little Moon. I called it the ugly bell. She threatened to drop it on my foot. Its value became obvious the first time she took me to the Dawn Bell. The Dawn Bell stood inside an old timber pavilion halfway up Mount Gaon. It was enormous, more than twice my height. Dark bronze, green at the edges. Its surface carried cloud patterns so worn that some had become almost smooth. A long crack ran from the lower rim upward. The county had stopped sounding it decades earlier because each strike produced a warped, unpleasant tone. Jian's father had spent 20 years trying to repair it. Jian intended to finish his work. Don't touch it, she said. I touched it. She closed her eyes. You are a difficult person. The world vanished. True resonance opened inside me like another sense. The Dawn Bell was not cracked in one place. It contained a network. 49 harmonic layers. Exactly like the bell from Life 4. My hand started shaking. Jian noticed. What? This bell isn't damaged. She looked at the visible crack. I corrected myself. The crack is real, it just isn't the important problem. I moved around the bell. Some internal harmonics were dead. Not broken. Muted. Deliberately. Someone centuries earlier had altered the bronze structure at 7 points, introducing tiny counter-resonances that prevented the deeper harmonics from aligning. It was brilliant. Like locking a door by convincing the door it had never been built to open. Jian listened while I explained. When I finished, she struck the ugly bell once. It produced a miserable clank. I frowned. What was that? My way of saying, I don't understand half of what you just said. Why not say that? The bell is faster. That became her preferred response whenever I became too theoretical. Clank. I hated that bell. I also started carrying it during experiments because its cracked tone exaggerated unstable harmonics. Over the next 6 months, road labor became my training ground. I repaired shrine steps, bridge anchors, stone walls, drainage channels. Every site taught me something. Some mountain stones carried spiritual vibration far better than others. Some old roads from my first life followed lines of natural resonance. Several abandoned temples sat exactly where underground spiritual currents intersected. My mapmaker memories returned with new meaning. Then I found the first old formation. It surrounded a roadside shrine 3 days north of Gaon. The local formation master had spent 6 months trying to restore it. The outer stones refused to hold energy. I listened for 10 minutes. One pillar was wrong. Not damaged. Wrong frequency. I rotated it less than the width of 2 fingers. The formation activated. The master stared at me. You guessed. Yes. Jian, standing behind him, hit the ugly bell. Clank. I repaired 3 more formations that month. People started talking. Cho One noticed. He summoned me to the county office. His room smelled of ink, pine smoke, and old paper. He had my assessment record open on his desk. 3 months ago, he said, you possessed no measurable cultivation. According to your bell. According to the royal standard. Those are not necessarily the same thing. His expression didn't change. That was one thing I respected about Cho Won. He was not easily provoked. Your road supervisor reports that you now perform the labor of 3 adult workers. I eat considerably more too. No one has complained about that. My mother has. He ignored the joke. You repaired a registered formation. Yes. Without formal training. Yes. How? I could have lied. Instead, I gave him a partial truth. I listen. To stone. To resonance. Cho Won studied me for a long moment. Then he surprised me. That can be dangerous. I said nothing. People who discover unusual methods, he continued, often believe discovery and understanding are the same thing. That was almost exactly the mistake I had made in life 3. For the first time, I wondered whether Cho Won was more than the man who had erased my test result. He continued, "Do not teach what you cannot prove is safe." I agree. That seemed to unsettle him more than argument would have. Then he said, "Report any method affecting spiritual channels to this office." Why? Because uncontrolled cultivation techniques kill people. That is also true. And because discoveries with military value belong under royal oversight. There it was. Not corruption yet. Control. Cho Won believed systems existed for a reason. The problem was that he also believed people existed to fit systems. I bowed and left. Outside, Jian waited with steamed buns. What did he want? To protect civilization from me. That seems ambitious. He might have a point. She handed me a bun. That seems worse. By the end of my first year of road service, I reached breath stage. 3 months later, channel. Officially impossible. Then progression stopped being fast. It became exponential. The record had shown 4 separate legacy marks. I discovered I could consciously overlap them. Perfect breath and living pulse created nearly flawless internal circulation. Living pulse and true resonance allow me to feel instability before it became injury. Perfect breath and true resonance let me match techniques while they were being used. Patient mind amplified everything because complexity did not exhaust my attention. The first time I combined all 4, the dark jade record opened. Harmonic body cultivation recognized. I sat in meditation for 6 hours. Breath, pulse, vibration, adjustment. My entire body became an instrument I could tune. Muscle tension, bone conduction, blood flow, meridian elasticity, spiritual pressure. Nothing changed instantly. That mattered. I was not handed power. I had finally created a method worthy of all 4 lives. 2 months later, I reached core stage. The county's senior instructor came personally to confirm it. He tested me 3 times, then asked how old I was. 16. He sat down. That was the first time my progress frightened someone whose opinion mattered. 3 months later, Cho Won terminated my road assignment. He called it administrative reassignment. I called it taking away my extremely convenient mountain training program. I almost objected. Then Jai and reminded me normal people disliked compulsory labor. Try to look liberated, she said. I had several good retaining walls left. You need help. Probably. Instead, Cho Won assigned me to the Royal Cultivation Hall in Gaean. His reasoning was sensible. If my method was real, he wanted experts observing it. If it was dangerous, he wanted it contained. If it was valuable, he wanted the crown to know first. He was adapting. That made him much more dangerous than an idiot. Unfortunately for him, the hall contained better training equipment. Core stage lasted 7 months. Mountain stage lasted 5. That was the point when the local order stopped making sense. A mountain cultivator was considered a regional master. There were only 9 in Gaon County. The youngest was 43. I reached it before 17. The hall stopped putting my name on the public progression board after someone accused the clerks of making arithmetic errors. My mother reacted differently. She watched me repair the roof one morning without using a ladder. "You could do that yesterday." "No." She stared at me. "Can you still fall?" "Yes." "Good." That answer made her strangely happy. Power worried her. Not because she disliked it. Because my father had spent his final years chasing royal favor after our family's status began collapsing. He died believing one promotion would fix everything. My mother had seen ambition eat a person before. I kept that in mind. Then the first major incident happened. A royal martial instructor named Master Yun visited Gaon to evaluate rumors about me. He was crown stage. Not merely strong. Locally legendary. When I was a child in this life, I had heard stories about him splitting a boulder field with one palm strike. At the Cultivation Hall, 300 students gathered to watch. I hated that. Master Yun seemed to hate it too. He was in his 60s, quiet, heavy-browed, and far more interested in my technique than in humiliating me. Cho-Won says you alter your own channels. He says many things. Master Yun almost smiled. Show me. I circulated. He sensed the changing resonance, and his expression sharpened. Then he said, block this. No warning. He thrust one palm forward. A compressed wave of force crossed the training ground. At 15, it would have broken half the bones in my body. At 16, I might have redirected it. At 17, I heard it. The technique contained a dominant harmonic. A powerful one. But clean. I raised my hand. Matched the frequency. Then shifted my own resonance half a cycle. The incoming force disappeared. Not exploded. Not shattered. It simply canceled. 300 people became very quiet. Master Yun looked at his palm. Then at me. Then he laughed. One short sound. Not disbelief. Delight. You didn't block it. No. You silenced it. Yes. How much power did that require? About 1/8 of what you used. The students started whispering. Master Yun turned toward them. Go away. Nobody moved. He raised an eyebrow. 300 future cultivators discovered remarkable speed. Afterward, he sat with me beneath a pine tree and asked questions for 2 hours. He understood quickly. More importantly, he saw the danger. If this becomes public, he said, every clan will want it. I know. They will try to reproduce it badly. I know. Some will damage themselves. I know. He studied me. You've made that mistake before. I looked at him. He could not possibly know. I said something like it. Master Yun did not push. Instead, he became one of the first powerful people to treat me as a person, rather than a resource. That mattered later. Cho-Won reacted differently. Within a week, he issued a royal notice declaring harmonic body cultivation subject to state review. He wasn't legally stealing it. Not yet. He was creating authority around it. I confronted him privately. You cannot classify my own body as royal property. No, Cho once said, but techniques capable of changing military cultivation potential are subject to review. I have not distributed it. You demonstrated it publicly. I was attacked publicly. Tested. The distinction depends heavily on whether you're the palm. His jaw tightened. Then he made an argument I could not dismiss. If 1,000 children attempt your method tomorrow and 30 die, will you accept responsibility? Yes. That answer stopped him. I continued, which is why I haven't published it. Cho-won leaned back. You are more careful than I expected. You classified me after 30 seconds. That is my profession. That might be the problem. His eyes cooled. Not because I insulted him. Because somewhere inside that sentence was a threat to everything he had built. I left. 3 weeks later, Jai-in and I finished restoring the outer structure of the Dawn Bell. We still had not removed the 7 suppressions. She stood beneath it with the ugly bell in one hand. You're stronger than Master Yun now. Probably. That sounded arrogant. I am trying honesty. You may need less of it. I touched the Dawn Bell. The 49 layers hummed beneath my fingers. I had surpassed mountain stage. Crown came less than 2 months later. The breakthrough was almost anticlimactic. No thunder. No glowing sky. I was repairing a circulation imbalance near my left shoulder when living pulse suddenly expanded through my entire body. For the first time, every meridian resonated as one system. The old barrier vanished. I opened my eyes. Jai-in was eating a pear. Did something happen? I think I reached Crown. She took another bite. That sounds expensive. What? People are going to start visiting. She was right. They did. Officials, cultivators, military commanders, healers, smiths, 3 noble families, 2 temple masters, 1 merchant who offered to name a mountain after me if I licensed my method to him. I asked whether he owned a mountain. He did not. This apparently had not been considered important. Within another 6 months, I passed Crown. There was no official name for what came next. The measurement stones saturated. Formation sensors maxed out. Master Yun tried to measure my output and eventually said, I no longer know what number would be useful. That was local supremacy. I had reached the ceiling. Then Cho-won made his move. He presented my original assessment record to the royal governor. According to him, I had concealed abnormal talent during testing and later developed an unregistered military cultivation technique. He requested temporary royal seizure of my research until a formal review could determine whether my family's tax status had invalidated my right to private cultivation discoveries. It was clever. Ugly, but clever. He wasn't calling me weak anymore. He was trying to place the law around something he could no longer control physically. So I gave him exactly what he asked for. A second test. Using the original bell. The reassessment took place in the same hall where Life 5 had begun. This time the gallery was full. The governor attended. Master Yun attended. 3 royal scribes attended. Cho-won stood beside the bronze testing bell with the confidence of a man who had spent 28 years trusting procedure. Jai-in arrived carrying the ugly bell. Cho-won looked at it. What is that? Technical equipment, she said. Clank. I nearly laughed. The old testing bell had been polished. I placed my hand against it. Before we begin, I said, I want the bell inspected. Cho-won frowned. It was inspected this morning. For damage. Yes. For stored resonance. Silence. The governor looked toward Cho One. He said carefully, bronze does not store records. Correct. That mattered. I did not have a magical device containing convenient evidence of every bad thing Cho One had ever done. What bronze stored was strain. Repeated vibration changed metal. Tiny differences. Patterns. Where a bell rung 10,000 times was not physically identical to a bell never rung at all. And a spiritually active bell carried even more complicated traces. I had spent an entire life learning to read them. With Jayan's help, I reconstructed the testing bell's real function. Modern examiners believed it produced one dominant tone corresponding to spiritual aptitude. The original design was more complex. The main tone measured raw channel capacity. Secondary harmonics measured adaptability. Resonance. Recovery. Elemental response. Several traits the modern system no longer tracked. Cho One had not invented the simplified system. That was important, but he had learned how to exploit it. We demonstrated with 6 volunteers. The first was a noble child officially classified as high talent. The bell produced a strong main note. 3 weak secondary harmonics. The second was a road worker's daughter, previously classified as unusable. Her main note was weak. Her secondary harmonics were extraordinary. The third produced another mismatch. Then another. The governor's expression changed. Cho One did not panic. He adapted. Historical degradation of the instrument, he said. Reasonable. So we brought 3 old testing bells from neighboring counties. Master Yun had arranged transport. All showed the same hidden structure. Then the royal scribes opened Cho One's ledgers. That was where his real problem began. We did not accuse. We compared. Over 12 years, children from wealthy families who received poor initial results were retested an average of 3.7 times. Children from indebted families were retested an average of 1.1 times. Several wealthy candidates had received official classifications, matching secondary harmonics rather than their first main note. Cho One knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. He had understood for years that the simplified test missed something. Instead of questioning the system, he monetized exceptions. I looked at him. You knew some readings changed. Cho One's face had gone pale, but his voice remained steady. I knew repeat measurements sometimes produced different dominant responses. And poor families. The county cannot retest every child indefinitely. There it was. His worldview in one sentence. Efficiency required categories. Categories required cutoffs. People outside the cutoff became acceptable losses. Then the governor asked about private payments from 4 families. Cho One said nothing. His downfall was not dramatic. No lightning struck. Nobody screamed. The governor simply ordered the ledger sealed, Cho One suspended, and 2 independent investigators summoned from the capital. That was enough. Authority left him before he physically left the room. He looked at me once. Not begging. Not furious. Tired. You will discover, he said quietly, that a system serving thousands cannot treat every person as an exception. He was right about one thing. Scale was difficult. He was wrong about the answer. Then build a better system, I said. Don't sell access to the exceptions. I never saw him in office again. Later, the investigation found enough evidence to remove him permanently and order restitution from several families that had purchased favorable placements. Not every classification he made had been wrong. That would have been too simple. But hundreds of children were retested. Dozens entered paths previously closed to them. That mattered more to me than Cho One's punishment. I thought the original conflict was finished. I was stronger than anyone in Gaon. Stronger than Master Yun. Probably stronger than anyone in the kingdom. My family's tax debts were cleared after the governor compensated us for wrongful labor classification. My mother still refused to move from our old house. When offered rooms at the governor's residence, she said palace floors looked difficult to sweep. I had achieved more in 17 years than any of my previous lives. For about 3 weeks, I genuinely thought I had reached the top. Then Jai-in and I removed the first suppression from the dawn bell. The mountain answered. Not metaphorically. The entire mountain vibrated. Streams rippled. Birds exploded out of the trees. Every temple bell in Gaon County rang once without being struck. Jai-in slowly turned toward me. That seems bad. It might be good. Clank. Fair. We removed the second suppression. Then the third. Each revealed another layer. At the seventh, the dawn bell became fully itself. 49 harmonics aligned. I struck it. The sound went upward. The sky opened. I had seen stars in 5 lives. I had mapped by them. Prayed beneath them. Ignored them. Used them to judge seasons. I had never seen them connect. Golden lines spread across the night. 1 star brightened. Then 7. Then hundreds. Each line vibrated with a frequency true resonance could perceive. The sky was not becoming a picture. It was revealing infrastructure. Roads. Routes. Connections. The dawn bell's 49 harmonics reached outward into a network, so enormous my senses failed trying to follow it. The dark jade record opened. External harmonic network detected. Legacy resonance recognized. Then something stepped out of the light above the bell pavilion. A woman landed on the stone courtyard. Not fell. Landed. She wore a pale gray traveling coat cut in a style I had never seen, boots without visible stitching, and a silver ring around one wrist covered in moving symbols. She looked around. At Jai-in. At me. At the dawn bell. Then she said, in perfectly understandable speech, this road was marked dead. Jai-in rang the ugly bell. Clank. The woman stared at it. I rubbed my face. She does that when reality becomes inconvenient. I see. Jai-in pointed at her. Who are you? Sina. From where? Sina glanced up at the connected stars. Far enough that your map will not help. I felt personally attacked by that answer. Then Sina looked directly at me. Her expression changed. I had surpassed every power I knew. Master Yun's presence felt like a mountain. Mine had grown beyond his. Sina felt like standing beside an ocean during a storm and realizing the water had noticed me. She did nothing threatening. That made it worse. My body automatically shifted into resonance control. Sina raised both hands. Please don't. You sensed that. I sensed the road shake when you became nervous. Jai-in looked at me. You're shaking roads now. Apparently. That seems expensive. Even terrified, I almost laughed. Sina inspected the dawn bell for 20 minutes. Then she inspected me. Not physically. Her silver wrist ring projected concentric light around my body. It reached my chest. Stopped. Restarted. Then displayed something she apparently disliked. Do that again, she said. Do what? Exist. I am already doing that. Giant smiled. Sina ignored us. She scanned again. Then asked, how old are you? 17. No. Biologically. 17. Her eyes narrowed. Your soul has layered where? I stopped smiling. The record opened by itself. Multi-life resonance recognized. 4 legacies harmonized. 46 lives remain. For the first time since my first death, I felt afraid of the 50-life record. Sina could not see it. I was certain of that. But she could see what 4 lives had done to my soul. What is this place? I asked. She looked up. The 9 Bell Roads. The phrase meant nothing to me. Then everything changed. Our kingdom, our mountains, our maps, every place I had crossed across several lives belonged to one isolated world. Not one continent. One world. Long ago, it had been connected through the bell roads to other inhabited worlds. The ancient bells were not merely ritual objects. They were communication anchors, navigation beacons, transit gates, emergency seals. Our legendary crown stayed. Sina called it minimum stable road tolerance. I stared at her. Minimum. For adults traveling without shielding. Jayan covered her mouth. I could tell she was trying not to laugh. This is funny. A little. I became the strongest person in the kingdom. And now you meet customs. Clank. I hated her. Sina explained carefully. There were larger civilizations beyond the roads. Some spanned multiple worlds. Some cultivated forms of energy our language did not properly describe. Some built structures in the spaces between worlds. The 9 Bell Roads were only one network among several. For the first time, my power did not feel small. It felt contextual. That distinction saved me. Everything I had accomplished remained real. Master Yun was still extraordinary. Crown was still extraordinary here. I was still far beyond it. The universe had simply become bigger. Sina tested me once. She asked me to strike her palm. I used enough force to break the old county measurement array. She barely moved. Then she asked me to try resonance. I matched the outer frequency surrounding her hand and shifted. Her expression changed. The protective field around her fingers flickered. She pulled back. How did you do that? I smiled. Finally, something familiar. I listen. Sina stared at me for several seconds. Then she laughed. You are very underpowered. Jayan winced on my behalf. Sina continued. And extremely dangerous. Much better. That was my first foothold in the ocean. Then Sina told us why our road had been sealed. And why opening it might have just doomed the world. Our world was dying slowly. So slowly that nobody living inside it had noticed. Sina showed us measurements from the dawn bell. The natural spiritual current had declined for centuries. That was why old records described cultivators stronger than modern legends. Why ancient formations exceeded modern capacity. Why abandoned temples stood on places that now seemed useless. Why spiritual herbs had become rarer. The people had not simply declined. The environment had. Long ago, our ancestors had isolated the world from the bell roads to slow the drain. It had worked. For centuries. But the internal circulation had continued weakening. The seal was no longer preserving a healthy system. It was preserving a failing one. I asked the obvious question. Can you fix it? Sina shook her head. I can close the road again. For how long? Perhaps 200 years. Jian went silent. To a normal person, 200 years sounded generous. To me, it sounded like a problem someone in a future life would inherit. That thought came naturally. Too naturally. Close the road. Leave. Learn. Maybe return stronger in another life. Maybe not. I had 46 chances remaining. Then I touched the dawn bell. Living pulse and true resonance overlapped. Something about Sina's explanation felt familiar. Circulation declining. Channels narrowing. Pressure shifting. Localized blockages. I stopped hearing a world problem. I heard a patient. The mountains were channels. Rivers moved spiritual pressure. Old shrines sat at junctions. Bells marked nodes. Roads from my first life followed those same lines, because ancient builders had placed transport near stable spiritual currents. My lives aligned in my mind. Mapmaker, cultivator, healer, bell maker. Nothing had been wasted. We shouldn't close it, I said. Sina looked at me. We may have to. No, the seal isn't the disease. She became still. The circulation is. For the next 11 days, we mapped Gaon. Not politically. Physiologically. I used maps from life, one, reconstructed from memory. Jian identified bell sites. Master Yun brought royal records. Sina used instruments that could measure currents below the sensitivity of local formations. The pattern was obvious once we knew what to look for. Our world had once circulated energy through a network of major mountain bells. Not one dawn bell. Hundreds. Most were damaged. Some buried. Some melted down centuries ago. Some replaced by decorative copies. Spiritual current now pooled in several regions and starved others. Like a body with failing circulation. I knew how to treat that. In theory. In practice, the patient was a country. Possibly an entire world. Sina offered me another option. She could take me through the Bell Road. Immediately. There are people who understand world-scale resonance better than you do, she said. How long to reach them? Months. And return. Not guaranteed. That was when the temptation became real. Beyond the dawn bell existed everything I had wanted through 4 lives. Better techniques. Stronger bodies. Knowledge. Possibly answers about the record. Maybe information about my missing brother. Master Yun had discovered that the royal expedition Min Ho joined had found a dormant bell site 2 years earlier. The expedition vanished shortly after. Sina believed they might have accidentally crossed a damaged road. My brother might be alive. Out there. Jian found me alone beneath the dawn bell that night. You're going, she said. It wasn't a question. I might have to. Because of your brother. Yes. Good reason. And the record. She knew about it now. Not every detail. Enough. You want answers. Yes. She sat beside me. I said if we close the road, the world survives another 2 centuries. You said that like it's a long afternoon. I looked away. I've lived almost 300 years. No, you lived 4 lives. There is a difference. Yes. Her answer came too quickly. I looked at her. She held the ugly bell between both hands. You keep talking about your lives like they are training rooms. I don't. You do. I almost argued. Then remembered Ha Rin. People are not practice lives. Jian continued. You say things like if this fails, you'll remember next time. If someone dies, you say you'll carry them with you. If this world declines, maybe you'll fix it later. That is practical. It is terrifying. I said nothing. She looked toward the sleeping town below. My father gets one life, your mother gets one, Master Yun gets one, I get one. I know. Do you? That hurt. Then she said the sentence that finally broke something open inside me. If having 50 lives only makes you better at leaving them, what are they for? I had no answer. 4 deaths had taught me how to continue. They had not taught me how to stay. The next morning, I told Sina I would enter the Bell Roads. But not yet. First, I was going to repair the world that made me. The repair required 7 weeks of preparation. It was the largest cooperative effort the kingdom had attempted in generations. And it almost failed because everybody wanted to be in charge. Royal officials wanted a command hierarchy. Temple keepers wanted ritual authority. Military cultivators wanted security control. Craft guilds wanted jurisdiction over bells. Formation masters wanted everyone else to stop touching things. Giants solved several meetings by ringing the ugly bell whenever speeches exceeded useful length. Clank. Eventually, even Master Yun started looking at her hopefully during political arguments. We identified 49 primary resonance sites. That number did not surprise me anymore. Some contained intact bells. Others only foundations. At 12 sites, new resonant instruments had to be cast. I returned to bronze work. For the first time since Life 4, I stood beside a furnace. My hands remembered. True resonance turned mastery into something greater. I could hear alloy composition while metal cooled. I could feel microscopic defects before they formed. Smiths from the Royal Foundry stopped questioning my instructions after the third bell came out cleaner than anything in their archives. At every site, healers trained using a safe fragment of meridian tempering. Not the whole method. A stabilization cycle. Perfect breath patterns. Pulse monitoring. No forced expansion. I had finally learned the difference between guarding knowledge and hoarding it. Road crews reopened forgotten mountain routes. That moved me more than I expected. The same kind of laborers Cho 1 had assigned me to became essential to saving the kingdom. Master Yun coordinated cultivators. Sina stabilized the external road. Jian coordinated bell keepers using timed signal patterns. My mother organized food for the Gaean crews because apparently saving the world still required someone to notice that powerful cultivators forgot to eat. Then the network began failing before we were ready. 3 nights before activation, the western spiritual current collapsed. Fields near Miro Valley frosted in late summer. I knew that valley. Life 3. Ha Rin. My father. The clinic had vanished centuries earlier, but the river still followed the same curve. I went there alone. A crown cultivator required nearly a day to cross that distance. I arrived in less than an hour. That was the moment I truly understood how far beyond the old hierarchy I had grown. What once required roads and maps and careful lodging plans had become a morning journey. The western node was a ruined bell foundation. No instrument remained. I could have released enough power to force energy through the blockage. It would also have damaged the surrounding spiritual channels. Raw strength was no longer the challenge. Precision was. I sat in the frozen grass. Breathed. Listened. Then used my own body as the missing resonator. For 6 hours, I held the western current in rhythm. Mountains vibrated around me. The strain was enormous. Not because I lacked power. Because one mistake would redirect that power into villages. Sina arrived near dawn. She watched for several minutes. "You could survive the crossing now," she said. "I know. Most first-road cultivators couldn't do this." "Good. You sound disappointed." "I spent 4 lives becoming impressive. Allow me to enjoy it briefly." She smiled, then helped stabilize the node. The full activation began 2 days later. 49 sites, 49 bells or substitute resonators, thousands of people, one network. Giant stood at the dawn bell. I stood beneath it. The first signal traveled from the eastern mountain. One bell, then another, then a third. Spiritual current began moving. Rivers brightened faintly under moonlight. Old formations awakened in abandoned temples. Mountain lines I remembered from life, one lit beneath the earth. At the 19th node, instability hit. At the 27th, 3 bells fell out of phase. At the 34th, a northern current surged hard enough to crack stone. I corrected each through the dawn bell. Not by overpowering them, by tuning. My 4 legacy marks operated together so completely that I stopped thinking of them separately. Breath became pulse. Pulse became vibration. Vibration became patience. Patience made complexity possible. The 49th bell sounded. The network should have closed. It didn't. Energy surged into the dawn bell and had nowhere to go. Sina shouted, "There's a missing terminal harmonic." Giant stared at the bell. 49 sites. "There should be 50, I said. The record opened. For one horrible second, I saw my remaining lives. 46. I thought I understood. 50 lives. 50 harmonics. Was the record built for this? Did the final tone require 50 completed incarnations? Had I found the answer 46 lives too early? Then the record changed. Patient mind. Perfect breath. Living pulse. True resonance. 4 legacies harmonized. Current life resonance, unregistered. I stared. Current life. Not future life. Not completed life. This one. Life 5 had no legacy mark because I wasn't dead. I had spent 4 incarnations believing only completed lives could contribute something permanent. But I was not merely carrying the dead. I was alive. That mattered. The 5th tone at my assessment had not belonged to a legacy mark. It had been me. Min Jun. This Min Jun. The boy with a mother waiting at home. A missing brother. A friend holding an ugly bell. A country I had chosen not to abandon. I placed both hands on the dawn bell and added myself to the harmony. The 50th tone rang. The world inhaled. I do not know how else to describe what happened. Mountains brightened from within. Not visibly like lanterns. More like dawn moving through stone. Every river in Gaian rose by the width of a finger. Temple bells across the kingdom sounded without hands. Old formations that had been dormant for centuries awakened one after another. The spiritual current did not increase immediately. It moved. That was the important part. Stagnant regions released pressure. Starved regions received flow. The world had not lacked energy as badly as we thought. Much of it had simply stopped circulating. Exactly like a damaged body. Sina stabilized the open bell road. Master Yun and the other crown cultivators held regional nodes. Giant stood beside me, listening with her eyes closed. Then she suddenly screamed, "Lower the western line." I adjusted without asking. A heartbeat later, the western current surged. Her hearing had caught it before true resonance reached me through the network. That correction prevented the Miro Valley node from rupturing. She saved thousands of people. Later, she insisted she only saved my reputation. I allowed the lie. The dawn bell reached full resonance just before sunrise. For the first time in centuries, all 49 ancient harmonic layers were active. And beneath them was the 50th living tone. Mine. The sky filled with bell roads. Sina stared upward. That, she said quietly, will be noticed. I was too tired to care. By whom? Yes. I disliked that answer. But the world was stable. Not permanently. Nothing living is permanently healthy. That was another lesson from Life 3. But circulation had been restored. Sina estimated that if maintained properly, spiritual density would begin increasing again within decades instead of declining. The kingdom had not been saved by one overwhelming attack. It had been saved by infrastructure. Ha Rin would have laughed herself sick. The aftermath was strange. People tried to give me titles. I rejected most of them. One was Heavenly Resonance Sovereign of the 49 Peaks. Jian rang the ugly bell before the official finished saying it. Clank. We settled on no title. Master Yun approved. The royal government replaced the old one-tone classification system. Children were tested across multiple characteristics. Adaptability became one of them. No 15-year-old's future was supposed to depend on one strike anymore. Cho Won's investigation concluded 6 months later. He lost office permanently. Several properties were seized for restitution. He was not imprisoned for life. He was not executed. He was ordered to assist the Review Commission in reconstructing 20 years of classifications because, inconveniently, he knew the records better than anyone. I found that punishment appropriate. He had spent decades sorting people into categories. Now he had to help examine the damage caused by those categories, one person at a time. I visited him once. He looked older. He asked, "Do you think the new system will be fair?" No. That surprised him. Then why replace mine? Because better and perfect are different words. For the first time, Cho Won smiled at me. Not warmly, but genuinely. You learned bureaucracy. I've suffered many lives. He almost laughed. Then we were finished. My mother refused every royal residence offered to us. We repaired our old house instead. She planted vegetables where officials wanted to build a memorial pavilion. Apparently this caused administrative difficulties. She considered that a benefit. Then Sina brought me the information I had wanted since the beginning. Min Ho, my brother. The royal expedition had reached another ancient bell road 2 years earlier. The damaged route activated unexpectedly. 7 expedition members crossed. 3 returned. 4 did not. Sina found a matching transit record in the outer network. A traveler fitting Min Ho's age and description had reached a station called Nara Crossing. Alive. At least 18 months ago. My brother was somewhere beyond the pond. For once, the wider world was not merely about power. It contained someone I loved. That made leaving different. Jian became official keeper of the Dawn Bell. She refused a ceremonial rank because it contained 9 words. Her stated maximum was 4. Bellkeeper Jian satisfied her. The ugly bell remained on her belt. I offered to repair it. She looked offended. It has historical importance. It sounds like cookware falling downstairs. Exactly. Sina stayed for another 3 months while the road stabilized. During that time, she showed me the beginning of wider world cultivation. not a replacement for what I knew. An expansion. Our crown stage relied on internal spiritual density. Beyond the roads, serious cultivators learned to stabilize power against external laws. Pressure, distance, dimensional boundaries, resonant domains. I was a beginner there. A very unusual beginner. The first time Sina taught me a standard road crossing stabilization technique, I learned it in 9 minutes. She stared. Most people require 3 months. I have patient mind. You've been practicing for 9 minutes. Very patient minutes. Then I modified the technique using perfect breath. Her expression became less amused. When I added true resonance, the road around us responded. Sina stopped me. Do not do that casually. Why? Because traffic exists. There are humiliations specific to discovering cosmic civilization. Being told not to accidentally interfere with interworld traffic is one of them. I was still powerful. More powerful every month. But for the first time since surpassing Crown, I had somewhere meaningful to grow. That thrilled me. It also frightened me. I liked that too. Fear meant the horizon was real. On the morning I finally prepared to leave Gaean, I walked the old mountain road alone. The same road crew had repaired part of it years earlier. I found one retaining wall I had helped build. My 7th hammer strike had indeed been too high. Giant had been right. This irritated me across dimensions. Then I climbed to the dawn bell. Giant was already there. Sina waited near the open road. Beyond her, the air shimmered into a passage filled with distant light. Somewhere past it was Nara crossing. My brother. Civilizations where Crown was a starting threshold. Answers about the 50-life record. And perhaps people strong enough to make everything I had done seem small again. Not meaningless. Small. There was a difference. Giant leaned against the pavilion rail. Are you frightened? Yes. She looked surprised. 4 lives earlier, I might have lied. 2 lives earlier, I would have analyzed the fear. Last year, I would have said I had 46 more chances if something went wrong. Instead, I simply admitted it. I am terrified. Good. That is an odd response from a friend. It means you might finally be taking this life seriously. I looked down at Gaean. Morning smoke rose from houses. Farmers were already in the fields. Temple bells marked sunrise. My mother would be pretending not to worry. Master Yun had promised to check on her. Children at the county hall were preparing for the new assessment system. Road crews were reopening old routes to forgotten bell sites. The world was not fixed. It was alive, which meant it would always need care. The 50-life record opened one more time. Current life 5. Lives remaining 46. 4 legacy marks glowed beneath the words. Then a new empty space appeared below them. Not a completed legacy. A place waiting for whatever life 5 would eventually become. For centuries, I had looked at that number and thought it meant security. 46 more attempts. 46 more chances to correct mistakes. 46 more worlds, families, professions, techniques, and beginnings. Now I understood the other side of it. A future life could remember this one. It could learn from this one. It could inherit something from this one. But it could never replace this one. I closed the record. Sina stepped toward the bell road. Giant rang the ugly bell once behind me. Clank. I laughed. Then I followed Sina toward an ocean of worlds that considered my greatest achievement an entry requirement. I had already become stronger than anyone who once had the power to decide my future. I had repaired the system that called me useless. I had surpassed the people I once thought represented the summit. And then I discovered the summit was only the shore. I still had 46 lives left. For the first time, I wasn't in any hurry to reach the next one.